And it can be a lot less difficult to convince that person to part with multiples more money to take an injection every week.
Right. I got through 2 full rounds. I lay down in the third round. I'm looking up, and I just see my eyes just closing in. I was like,
the blackout. That's the blackout feeling.
Man, I knew. I was like, well, okay, I have some improvement to do or to make.
Sometimes we think out of our own wallets instead of the wallets of our customers, right? You don't know what their wallet is.
Horrible about that. My wife and I are horrible about that.
Yeah, you don't know their wallet. Welcome to the Eden Group podcast. I am joined today by Cory Dean. Cory is a level 2 certified coach and the owner of Industrious Frisco, a boutique training facility in Frisco, Texas, based around the Halo training concept, which was created by Molly and Stephen Hitt out of Linwood, Washington. Cory has been a coach for over 21 years, as well as a business owner, and so we are honored to be able to speak with Cory today. Cory, I want to go back to the beginning. Where did you grow up, and how did you make your way into the fitness business?
Yeah, so I grew up in Garland, Texas, G-Town, as it's affectionately referred to by some folks. And yeah, so I was active in sports growing up. I did some coaching. I was a gymnast for a little while. I did some coaching for gymnastics. And then, I got into the corporate America world and worked I was in the IT world for a while, worked for Microsoft for a few years. And back in 2003, I left Microsoft. It was around, I think it was 2003, because they were outsourcing a whole bunch back then. And I just didn't want to get caught up in all that. So I left and went to a little startup company. And I did a year there in the IT world and then just jumped ship completely and got into the training world. So my brother-in-law had been a trainer for many, many, many years. And he had kind of been talking to me about, making that change for a little while. And it just didn't seem like something I was comfortable getting out of my cush corporate job with that steady paycheck every 2 weeks, right? And so it just was kind of something I pushed away for a while. But then I really started thinking about it and just made the leap of faith and basically became a certified trainer in late 2004 and was a personal trainer at a little studio in Dallas for a little while. And then 2009, decided to open up my first CrossFit gym.
When you were contract working for Microsoft, were you still based in Texas?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. And what was it that made you want to go into health and wellness business from IT? What kind of experiences had you been having that led you down that path?
Well, I'd noticed, I'd been pretty physically active my whole life, but I'd noticed having a desk job for several years, my level of fitness and my body composition had kind of taken a turn for the worse. So I decided to make a change in that regard while I was still at Microsoft. And I was just droning away on the stationary bike for a couple hours a day and eating like a bird. And I lost weight, yeah. But what happened was I was referred to the skinny fat. I had no muscle mass. I was just skinny, gaunt. I had no energy. I was miserable. I think I was even more miserable than before I started actually, trying to make my health better. And so then it kind of started to dawn on me that, right, maybe there's other ways to get in better shape, right, to get healthy. And so I kind of started going down that rabbit hole. And the opportunity presented itself with me just being fed up with doing IT work. And I said, you know what? I want to do something different. I'm not happy doing this. It wasn't driving me I wasn't waking up ready to go attack the day anymore, grinding my teeth at night, waking up with a headache. So I had a lot of these little clues, right, that I wasn't moving in the direction that was best for me. So I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to get out of IT. I'm going to get out of corporate America and I'm going to go try to blaze my own path. And I thought fitness was the way to do it because I liked fitness. I liked being physically active at the time. I liked coaching people and getting people to understand and realize that they're capable of so much more than they give themselves credit for, present company included, right? We all kind of have those self-imposed limitations at times that I think get in our way, right? So, and then the help of my brother-in-law. So I went and trained at his gym where he was a trainer and he really kind of helped kick that off for me because he had a great book of business. He had a lot of clients that he couldn't service at the time all at once. So there was some scraps, if you will, that I was able to get from him. And that really started my private training business. And that's what I did for about 5 years. Well, yeah, actually more than that. So 04, the end of 04. So let's just say 05 until 09 is when I opened my own gym. So 4 years. And here we are. So I've gone through a few iterations of the gym business as well, and we'll probably get into that. But yeah, that's where it really started.
And so was your first foray into professional fitness delivering CrossFit as the product, or was it some other form of training?
It was private training. So just the classic back buys, tries, full body splits, upper body, lower body splits type stuff, classic bodybuilding back in the day. So
Okay, got it. Any show prep? Were you prepping anybody for shows and any
No, this was just general
general
health
thought?
and fitness. Nothing that specific. There was nothing sports specific that I was doing at the time. It was just people wanting to feel better and lose weight.
How was that transition? And were you already quite good at sales and marketing, or was that a new skill you had to acquire?
I'd say it was definitely a new skill. I don't consider myself a salesperson or a salesman. However, if I feel passionate about something and I'm excited about it, I think it just comes out naturally for me. It's not anything that I feel forced, right? But if there's something that I'm not really like, for instance, I was a medical recruiter for a little bit and for nurses. And I didn't make a single placement inside of 3 months. And you had to make $120 a day. So think about that, $120 a day, and I didn't get a single placement in 3 months. I'm not the kind of guy that felt good about calling into an emergency room, trying to talk to a nurse who has a coding, somebody coding on the table next to them. Hey, you want to take a job in Maine? When they're in San Diego, right? It just didn't feel right. It felt kind of slimy to me. So I wasn't really into it. And I'd take that first no. Be like, all right, cool, thanks. Next. So yeah, I wouldn't say that I was a sales driven or good at sales per se, but I feel that if it's in my area of operation, so to speak, right, or area of expertise or limited expertise that I may have, I feel more confident about talking what I'm talking about, right, and delivering that information. And I think that just comes off to people that I hope that it comes off as me being sincere, because it is. I don't really have anything to embellish upon. I haven't done anything super special, just other than trying to help people.
What was the most difficult element of transitioning from the corporate world into building your first book of business as a personal trainer?
I think probably just the whole aspect of it being a completely new industry for me. There was no guarantee that I was going to get a paycheck. So that's always kind of hanging over you a little bit in the beginning. And then, of course, the self-doubt you have is, am I delivering the product that the client wants? That was definitely something and that still rolls around in my head to this day. I want to make sure that I'm delivering what the client's expectations are. And of course, I've gotten better at over the years of sitting down with clients and getting into those dark corners of, hey, why are you here and what do you want, right? And peeling back those layers of why that person is sitting in front of me. Because, a lot of times, hey, I just want to lose weight. Okay, great. Why? And then we start getting into the whys, and that really helps build those connections now a little deeper, because I've been there. I understand what that feels like. Being in a place or a position where you don't feel like yourself, you don't feel as capable as you once were. There's some confidence or insecurities that kind of come with that. So I can't imagine. I know it's still difficult for people to walk into a gym these days. I know that is. I know that's the case for a lot of people. And I hate that, but it's a truth. And I think we can do a better job of making people feel a little bit more comfortable about coming to gyms with maybe our social media presence, the way we conduct ourselves on social media platforms. I think there's little things that you can do that can kind of break those barriers down a little bit more for people. And if we can get people out of their comfort zones, right, maybe to challenge themselves a little bit more, they can really start to see the benefit and what they're truly capable of. And that's what's fun to see in people, is letting them kind of figure out, hey, I can do this, right? I am capable of doing this. And that's really rewarding for us as coaches, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of in my opinion, three key things, and this isn't original to me, right, that every human craves, right? Health, wealth, and relationships, right? And this is one of the pillars of the stool, one of the legs of the stool, right? And so
Right on.
it's why I'm so passionate about it too. It's so core. And I think it's difficult, especially on the fitness side, because there's so many aspects of health, right? And whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's nutrition, whether it's agriculture, which is where I work currently, and whether it's physical fitness and personal training, whether it's supplements. There's so many pieces of the puzzle. But I personally think that the hands-on frontline coach, right, the short tip of the spear, has the potential to make the biggest impact on the person. And it can also be one of the harder sales in that suite of solutions, because to get in shape is harder than simply taking an injection or a pill, right? But intrinsically, people tend to be willing to pay more for things that have the perception of being easier, right? And so that's why I was asking you about how was the sales process, because it can be difficult to convince someone to part with some amount of their money every month to come to a gym. And it can be a lot less difficult to convince that person to part with multiples more money to take an injection every week. Right?
Right. Yeah, it's strange, the psyche of people from one person to the next. You never really know. And, judging books by their cover, that's never really paid off for me in this space, because I've seen it. I've seen the very fit guy come into the gym and just think this guy's going to crush it and, love it, and basically not do anything with in terms of follow up because they didn't feel, and I'm citing a specific example here where a gentleman came in, very fit looking individual. I mean, again, just judging the book by the cover, you're like, oh, this guy's going to love it. He's going to do great here. And he couldn't get past his own ego that there were women in the class doing better than him. So yeah, I mean, that's not super common. At least it hasn't been super common for us, but it has happened, right? So you never really know what you're going to be dealing with. And I think having those front end conversations with your potential clients or prospects is where you can glean a lot of that information and get a little bit of insight into what this person's dealing with and why they're there, right? What are they truly serious to take action right then and there, or are they just kind of kicking tires? Because, we have, our time's valuable too, right? As coaches, we have so much energy that we can devote to those different buckets in our daily lives, right? Work, family, business development, personal development, professional development. So we don't want to waste our time either. So I think you get better at, again, not reading a book by judging books by its cover, but being able to ask those probing questions and be a little bit more discerning in the person that you're going to start spending that time with. Or you're just going to be like, okay, this person's not super serious. I'm going to give them some information. And if they're ready, when they're ready, they'll come back. But until then, I'm going to move on and address somebody else who's really serious right now.
Yeah, that sounds like wisdom from many years of coaching. So
I'm still not the greatest at it, but I'm working in that direction. So,
well, I appreciate your candor. All right. So you eventually opened up your own spot. When you did that, were you still doing personal training or had you just, okay. Yeah. You're still doing personal training and like body composition. When did you stumble upon CrossFit?
2006.
That's early.
2005 or 2006. Yeah, I think it might have been 2006. Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember I'd come across it once or twice before then. I kind of just browsed over it. And then the one time I hit CrossFit.com, it came up in a search somehow, some way. And there was a picture. It was on there, the workout of the day. And there was a little square picture, and it just had the lower arms of a gymnast on the rings. And, being a former gymnast, I was like, why do they have a picture of a gymnast on their website? What is this about? So then I started digging into it. And from that point on, I was on the site every day and reading all the CrossFit Journal articles that had been posted up to that time, the Glassman had put out. And so I was like, okay, well, let's give this a try. My first workout was Helen, which is 3 rounds, 400-meter run, 21 kettlebell swings, 12 pull-ups. And I'd been a trainer for a few years at this point, maybe a year and a half, maybe coming up on 2-ish. I've been regularly fitnessing. So I thought I was in pretty good shape. Well, I couldn't even finish that workout. I mean, it crushed me. I mean, I laid down in like the third round. I got through 2 full rounds. I laid down in the third round. I'm looking up and I just see my eyes just closing in. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, the blackout. That's the blackout feeling.
Man, I knew. I was like, well, okay, I have some improvement to do or to make. So I was hooked on CrossFit from that point on and just tried to soak up as much as I could. Joined a local gym in 2008 that was close to the gym that I trained at. And the rest is history, man. A year later, I opened up my own spot.
Did you convert your existing facility into CrossFit or open up a second location?
So I was renting space at the studio. I was doing
Okay.
personal training. Yeah. So this first space in '09 was
CrossFit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Nice. And did you ever go to the games? Did you have clients go to the games? How involved were you in the CrossFit community?
In the very beginning, Michael, I mean, we were eating it up, right? Drank all the Kool-Aid. And I didn't ever go to the games personally. We had some studs in our ranks in the beginning. We always fell short on the female side. We were always short with having enough ladies to contribute to the team.
Put a team together, yeah.
Team totals, right? But we were close. We had a couple of really strong gals, but we just didn't have enough to round out the team. And then we were never really close in an individual perspective for athletes. I mean, where we live, it's, a lot of families, husbands and wives, married couples that have kids. And so the demands are obviously greater than their fitness at this point, in the stage of their lives. But I mean, not saying that can't be done. Obviously, it's being done as we speak. But we never really got to the big show in that regard. And then probably I'd say around the 2017-ish mark, I kind of started to get I just kind of pumped the brakes. It wasn't really the raw effect anymore. Obviously, I think there's probably tolls and the ravages of just running a business and, the mental stress and anxiety that comes with running a business in general. So I just kind of pulled away from the CrossFit thing and just wasn't really into it. And then just basically kind of was on autopilot for a little while. And then getting fast forward, I had some knee issues, and that's when I found Ben Patrick and Knees Over Toes in 2021.
Dude, it's still so early in this thing, man. Oh man. So we'll get to your discovery of ATG and how that's changed your life and how that plays into your business. But I want to come back a little bit to CrossFit. And what were some of the big ahas that CrossFit gave you as a trainer and as a business owner from what you had previously been doing?
Great question, man. Well, I'd say probably one of the bigger ahas was just, I really appreciated the level one seminars. I had to do it a few times to renew my certification. And the level of the cadre that they would bring out for these level one certs, and I'm sure the level twos and threes are the same, but would just always blew me away. And every time that I would go through one of those, it just kind of reignited my that's legit, because it just made you a better coach. The way they broke down the movements, the progressions, really helpful. I think it just kind of helped me be better at reverse engineering movements to help people understand the what, the why, the how, because there's a lot of great movers or athletes out there that are probably not the best in coaching others.
Yes,
right. And
yeah.
there's
Because
a
they're
lot
so
of great
natural.
coaches. Yeah. Right. And there's a lot of great coaches that are not really good at doing, but they can coach the hell out of it. Right. They can connect. So I think that coaching group fitness, where you have to have your eyes moving and you got to be paying attention. It's not just one person, right? You got to be ready to fix a rounded back here and a range of motion overhead there, or a bad position over here. So it just makes you very dynamic, and you can start seeing and recognizing movement faults really well, which is great, right? It's helped me, because then that translates into my private training as well, because it's obviously you only have your focus on that one person. It's easy to see. But I think that was probably one of the bigger takeaways for me, is the group coaching aspect of it. It made me a better coach, I think. As far as business, the gym business became a business really fast versus a hobby, right? So it grew. When we opened in '09, CrossFit was gaining fast ground from the West Coast moving east. And, it was like shooting fish in a barrel when we would have people coming in almost every day to join back in 2010, 2011. And the gym grew exponentially so fast. We expanded 3 times from 10 to 13, we expanded 3 times. So at one point at our peak, we had an 8,500 square foot gym, over 400 members. Things were great, but I was burning candle at both ends in the middle. And with a member base that big, there's all kinds of fires that you got to put out regularly. You got little clicks, that pop up. And it became almost a point where I did step away to a degree for about a year and a half at some point during that, from probably 13 to 17. I just kind of pulled back. I had some other coaches that were able to take a lot of the classes for me. That ended up not working out too well for the gym. The gym actually shrank during that time, which you've heard, I'm sure you have, reversed in a lot of this stuff too, but not imposter syndrome, but I can't remember what someone referred to the other day, and I was like, that makes sense. But where you're the face of the gym, and if you're not involved in the gym on a regular basis, or what people came to the gym for, which was in the beginning, rather, it was just me and another coach running all the classes, and for a good while. So a lot of those members, our early member base, that their exposure was to me, and then I wasn't there. So, and people have preferences, right? I get that. And not saying that I'm the or anything in terms of my coaching style or my knowledge, but I get it. You like who you like. And when I did step away for a while, the gym did take a pretty significant dip in production and member base.
Yeah. So one of my favorite authors, he's been on quite a few podcasts. His name is Daniel Priestley. He's written some really incredible books. There are two that what you're referencing, 2 of his books really stand out to me. He has a book called 24 Assets, where he talks about the 24 assets that make any business valuable. Don't ask me to name all the assets, but the fundamental thesis is that the value of a business is directly proportional to the assets the owner owns that can deliver value to the customer without the owner being present. And the other book that he mentioned, your story reminded me of, is called Key Person of Influence. And the Key Person of Influence book talks about how every successful brand has a key person at its core that really sets the symbolic tone and mission of the business. So whether that was Disney, or whether that was Henry Ford, or whether that's Elon Musk, or whether that is Steve Jobs, go down the list. Like whether that's Enzo Ferrari. If you think about Bill Gates, any successful business has a key person of influence that people in the company and customers can point to and say, oh, this is the guy. But the one thing I notice, because I work with other small businesses, is that it can be really hard at that early stage to differentiate your role as the owner to be the key person of influence in perpetuity, but not to be the one fulfilling the orders, right? They're not the same thing. And so that really jumped out at me. How were you able to navigate that period between 2013 and 2017 as you realized like, oh, so many people joined because I was the key person of influence. Now I wasn't really around. And now I have these other coaches who are in, and there's preference and difference are, I think, a real reason why people buy things. Sometimes it's because something's better, but sometimes it's just because you just prefer, right? If you prefer mint chocolate chip, is that a better ice cream? Like, no, it's just what some people prefer. And if you change the flavor, people are gonna be like, wait, I joined for mint chocolate chip. Where'd mint chocolate chip go? And they leave, right? And so that's kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah. And, let me also say that I had a great coaching group around us. A lot of our coaches, we learned early to grab from within the community. So they'd already been members, they had rapport established, respect, and they were all great. And they have their fan. I mean, I know I wasn't everybody's favorite, right? There was other of our coaches were members' favorites as well. So I wanted to, make sure that was clear too, because I didn't want to take anything away from those guys and gals that have been through our doors and coaches over the years. But for me, I think that I was burnt out is what it was. And I think I just kind of had this attitude of, all right, I was sitting on my laurels to a degree, right? The gym was fairly successful, more success than I had ever imagined it would have, to be honest. I just, I didn't really, when I opened it, I didn't really think about how big it could get. I just wanted to have a gym and be able to deliver this methodology that I'd come to love so much and look forward to doing every day and spread it with other people, right? And share that. I didn't even think about really the business side of it. And that's where I think I really screwed up early on, was not having a solid business acumen from running a business perspective, right? So coming from corporate world, I didn't have to really do any of that. I mean, I had my little area of operation that I had to focus on daily. And as long as that stuff and those tasks were being met, then I was good to go. I could go home and come back the next day and do it again, right? But running the business is where I fell short very early, because I didn't have to work hard for it because it was so popular, right? It just was happening. That organic growth was crazy, Michael. And I've never seen or experienced that type of growth since. So to this day, right? So it's still one of those things like, wow, I was lucky to live through that. And now I know, it's like, okay, that's probably a once in a lifetime thing. At least so far it has been. I've got to get better at how I conduct business. So there's a lot of things that I need to do better, right, going forward when it comes to owning and operating a business like this. People aren't just going to come in the door because you got a sign on your building.
Yeah. In those early days, how close was your nearest competitor, or either competitor or nearest CrossFit gym, however you want to
Yeah. So
frame
for
it?
about 2.5, maybe 3 years, I want to say it might have been 3.5, but we'll go with 2.5 at least. We were the only game in town in our area, right? So probably within a 10-mile radius, we were the only CrossFit game in town. So you look up CrossFit, and we were off a major highway in the area. So right there on the front of our building, huge block letters, CrossFit, red letters. You couldn't miss it. So yeah, I mean, you could see it probably from the moon. I mean, this sign was huge. So that didn't hurt us in any way, right? And again, it just kind of goes back to, I didn't have to do any guerrilla marketing. I didn't have to spend money on ads. I don't even think ads were really a thing back then. Maybe, who knows, in 09, 2010. Maybe, right? I mean, it's still kind of underground, right? So yeah, I mean, I didn't have to learn any of that. And then when things started expanding and other gyms started opening up and other gyms were closer to members that were driving in 20 minutes ish or whatever, we started to see some attrition there. Nothing crazy, but we started to see it. And then the other side of that business, what I learned was we grew too fast. I was too quick to expand. When a member or two would say, man, it's crowded in here, and then I'm thinking in my head, oh crap, that's not good. We got to have more space. So I expanded. What I should have done was hold off on expanding, right? Raising my overhead, and then fine tuning things and making it a little bit more exclusive, right? And maybe raise my prices a little bit. And I didn't do a price raise for, let's see, from '09 till 2000, I think 2014. Yeah, it's either 2013 or 14, Michael. I think it was our first price increase. And that was a point of such anxiety for me to raise prices. Now I'm like, I still think about it, but it's like, hey man, this is the cost of doing business.
Now you know. Yeah, now you know.
We got to do this. So I still have a little bit of hesitancy because that's just me, but I'll do it I'll do it a whole lot quicker now than I did before.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. And sometimes we think out of our own wallets instead of the wallets of
Yes.
of our customers, right?
My
You
wife
don't
and
know what
I
their
are
wallet is.
horrible about that. My wife and I are horrible about that.
Yeah, yeah, you don't know their wallet. And you clearly had a demand benefit and a supply problem. It's like, okay, how do we fulfill this order? And as you mentioned, the two ways you can do it are we can take in more customers at the same price, or we can service the same or fewer customers at a higher price. And which one is more challenging to fulfill? And it sounds like as you've grown in this business, you've come to the conclusion like it's an art, right? There's not like it's not a hard science, but good businesses have higher revenue per employee or per square foot or per whatever your metric is. Per employee is an easy way to compare businesses to each other, but they have higher revenue per employee than their substitutes, right? If you see that, it's like, okay, this is a business that's utilizing its labor very efficiently. And yeah, if you have the demand, raise it. Oh, we have space again because people left. And guess what? We have the same overhead and higher revenue.
Right. Yep. So that was a big lesson for me. And I won't make that venture twice. That won't happen again to me. So we'll be very smart with where and how we grow. And, our prices right now are just, and also for context, I have a group business and a private training business that I run in out of the same location. CrossFit type training with Industrious and then ATG style training with ATG Frisco. But the idea is that we do have to charge more just by the nature of where our location is. We're located off of what they call the $7 billion mile here in Frisco, Texas. So you've got, the Star, which is where Jerry Jones and the Cowboys facilities right there. You've got a lot of major corporations that have moved their headquarters here. So a PGA is right down the street. Universal Studios, I think, or Universal Park. Is that what it is? One of those Disney parks is
Yeah, like
opening
Six
up down the
Flags or
road.
something.
Yeah, something big. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. And the price to do business, or the cost, I should say, to do business in Frisco is very high. So by default, our prices have to reflect that because our overhead's higher. So that's a challenge too. We're always keeping our eyes open for opportunities in terms of location. But that was something that I kicked myself for as well, because I probably should have pulled the trigger on a space that I would have owned and I could have afforded. I just wasn't thinking that far ahead. I wasn't thinking in that mindset of, oh, all right, well, you need to be ready to do this when this opportunity comes because now you'll have an asset, right? Versus just being a renter. And so I just wasn't thinking big enough back then. I was still super small minded in that regard. But now I think like that. I'm just not in the position to do it. And that's what I'm trying to work on is get myself back in that boat so that I could pull the trigger on a piece of land if that opportunity arises.
That's good. See, you're learning from lessons. That's awesome. Very similar to you, I discovered CrossFit in probably 2011, so quite a bit after you, but still in the early days. And I was blown away, right? I played ice hockey when I was younger, ran track and field, and then was a personal trainer for 3 years before coming over to finance. And while I was doing my MBA, I discovered CrossFit and also had that blackout experience. Like I haven't felt this, I haven't felt this since the first time I ran the 400, like as a freshman in high school, where the vision narrows and your butt
Yep.
starts locking, and you're like, "I'm gonna pass out. I'm gonna
Right.
pass out."
I better lay
and
down.
right, right, like I can feel it. This is coming. I'm gonna black out. And I was also hooked, but one of the things that I experienced doing CrossFit was accumulated injuries, too strong of a word, accumulated pains in like shoulders, knees, elbows. Did you experience any of that doing CrossFit, or was your knee pain unrelated to CrossFit at all?
So yeah, I experienced that. The first, I guess, exposure that I had to, and I was pretty darn healthy. I had not had any major injuries leading up to that at any point, and still haven't had any major injuries. But I did develop a gnarly case of elbow tendonitis from the amount of pull-ups that I was doing. I was doing pull-ups like crazy, right? So I tried cross friction massage. The thing that solved it for me was acupuncture. And I've had people who had the same problem in the same location, referred them to go get acupuncture, and it didn't work for them for whatever reason, right? So different strokes, different folks, just like different chiropractors address people's issues better than others, right? So that's something that I've kind of taken away is like, hey man, it may work for you, it may not, but it definitely solved my problem, right? But in terms of what I noticed, always doing the demonstrations during the workout briefs for all of our classes, right? So then I started picking up all these little aches and pains because I would do this stuff cold. I wasn't warming up. If I'm running the 5:30 a.m. class, it's already depending on the time of year, could be even colder. So just little things like that. I started noticing my body wasn't responding like it used to. And then the knee thing, that was another weird issue. One day, I remember it was in March, like 2018. And we had front squatted the day before, and then the next day I woke up, my knee just wasn't happy. It hurt bending it, putting any weight on it, going downstairs, squatting, lunging, not even possible without feeling like a knifing sharp pain. And I dealt with that for basically until 2021, 2022 timeframe when I found what we talked about earlier. But nothing happened. There was no pain experience when I was squatting. I didn't have any ballistic injury or anything like that. It was just wear and tear, I guess. The tendon was not happy with me. And that's what it ended up was, just a really bad case of quad tendonitis.
Yeah. Okay, so when did you hear about Ben Patrick?
Yeah. Again, that was just a happenstance. I think it was on social media somewhere in 21. And I came across Ben Patrick, knees over toes guy, and was like, all right, well, let's give this a shot. So I started doing the Zero program. Obviously the pandemic had been going on at some point. That's when he got into building a program for people who could do ATG at home without any equipment. So I started following that protocol, but I was also still doing my CrossFit workouts. And my intent was to do both, but it quickly, after about 3 or 4 weeks, I started to kind of end up being from 5 days a week ATG, Zero, to like 4 days. And then a few weeks later, it was like 3 days. And then a few weeks later, it was like 1 day, maybe 2. And then probably about 8-ish weeks into it. And then by this time, again, I wasn't following the program to the letter. I was trying to marry the two together, right? ATG and CrossFit. And I went out for a warm-up jog. And jogging, for whatever reason, didn't ever hurt my knee. Didn't bother my knee at all. Jumping rope didn't bother my knee at all. Anything that was involving deep reflection of the knee, that's when I would feel it, right? But this particular day, it's a 400-meter path that we'd jog for sometimes in the warm up, and my knee just started killing me. And I had to walk back in halfway because it was bothering me so bad. And I got really pissed off, and I was like, you know what, this ATG crap, this isn't working. And I just said, I'm not doing that anymore. And I just basically just threw it away. I sat there. This is about, I don't know what the exact time frame is, Michael, but it was a few weeks later. And the ATG for Coaches ad or something regarding the ATG for Coaches came across my screen. And Keegan was delivering some type of speech about it, or he was talking about it. And it's like, well, what is that? And I don't know what or why, but that intrigued me. And at that moment, I thought to myself, well, you really didn't give it the full college, shot. You half-assed it. So from that point on, I got involved with ATG for Coaches. And I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it for real. And I'm going to see what the results are. So I just stopped everything and put all my focus and all my eggs into that basket and did the Zero from week 1 all the way through 12. And then I moved right into standards, got through all 12 weeks of standards. And during standards was when I started using the sled, because I was on the treadmill, the dead mill up until that point. But then I started doing the sled. And about a week and a half later from the sled, I want to say maybe 2, the switch flipped and my knee pain started to completely go away. So at that point, and there's a post on one of my social medias where I talk about it. I mean, I was fired up. I even say that in the video. I mean, I was fired up because there was a noticeable shift in my knee health. And I was like, okay, well, then I'm going to keep going. So, and then I just started digging into it even more, right? And then it was like, all right, well, and then the talks of, all right, a coach's ATG expo for anybody who wants to come out to Florida for this expo. And there was 100 spots. And I got my reservation and went. And then that was also a certification that weekend. So, and they laid out all the standards of what you had to do and what you had to achieve. And I leaned into those and every day to meet those standards. And yeah, that was the beginning, man. And my Achilles, I had some Achilles issues on the same leg just as a result of understanding how tendons respond to tension and time under tension and blood flow now. It made all the sense in the world. And now, I mean, if I have any issues, I've got a pretty good idea of what I need to do to fix it, and with others, unless there's some type of crazy ballistic injury that involves tearing of tissue, right? I mean, if it's inflammation or a weakness or a shortness or a tightness or something that involves control, right? All those can be addressed with a little bit of time and focused effort with some intent, right? So that's the beautiful thing about it is our bodies are made to be able to heal itself. If we give it the right environment and the right intent, we can be very successful with it. And that's what really, really fired me up to be able to share that information with people, because how many people that you've known in your own personal life that walk around with some kind of knee pain or back pain?
It's everybody. I mean, between knees and lower back, that's got to be 80% of people.
Right?
And if you add shoulders, it's 100% of people.
Yeah, it's nuts. And it doesn't have to be that way. That's what sucks, is that people are walking around with limitations because sucks getting old. The old mentality that we hear from all the old heads before us. Right. Oh, it sucks getting old.
It's like,
It
well,
doesn't
kind
have
of,
to.
but not for the reasons you are referencing. Yeah. You have a much longer shelf life than you think,
Oh
right?
yeah, for sure. And it can be as qualitative as you want it to be, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, barring injury or disease, of course. But yeah, we were born with capable bodies, and damn it, I mean, we should die with those bodies.
This is what I love about ATG. It is the scalability of it and the breadth of the protocol, being able to take someone from, again, let's rule out things that require surgery, because some things require surgery. If you tear something completely, it requires surgery. If you break a bone, that requires surgery. But to take someone from basic, like untrained and incapacitated from an athletic standpoint to actually high performing, right? Is pretty remarkable. And it's something that even something like CrossFit, which I still have a lot of respect for, to do CrossFit at a high level, you kind of already have to be at a certain level of mobility. So like I've observed my parents or people of my parents' age jumping into CrossFit, and it's just like, it's only a couple months until they blow something. Like I know that. And that doesn't mean that the protocol is bad. It's not. It's a phenomenal stimulus. But if you're snatching and doing rapid pull-ups untrained, it's very risky, right? But on the flip side, if you are a grandparent or an athlete of 16 years old, ATG is going to make you a better athlete and it'll make you a better grandparent. Like it will, for sure, right? And so my big weakness is feet. So my feet, I have very flat feet and they are killing me and I'm still working through that protocol. But like you, I came to ATG because I've always had very strong legs from track and field and ice hockey, and I was able to squat, even now, like 405 very comfortably. But I couldn't like sit in a squat comfortably. Like my knees would kill me, and I couldn't really stay down there. And after doing ATG, it's like, oh, knees, hips, like I can just chill here with my baby and not even count the seconds like until I have to stand up. I can just chill, right? And I'm like, oh, ATG did that. Like ATG unlocked that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love to see that. And that's the thing. I mean, we're born with great mobility. We're born with great connective tissue strength, too. I mean, you think about the resiliency of a kid, the way they can jump off a fence or the roof of a house and spring right up and start running around. It's amazing to watch. And you think, you're like, man, we all used to be able to do that. But we get thrown in a desk at 5 or 6 years old, and then you're there till you're 18 to 24. So you've got, now you're short, you're weak, you're inhibited. I mean, so there's all these maladies that come with that, and you're only saved relatively if you're involved in any type of extracurricular activities that involve movement, right? Otherwise, and then, God, the kids these days that have nothing to do but move their thumbs, on a controller or a phone. I mean, I'm horrified for that generation of kids that aren't involved in anything like that. So, but yeah, I agree. I mean, ATG, it opened my eyes to a lot. And Ben, the way he delivers, he's just such a phenomenal human. And he wants to spread that information and knowledge to everybody that he can, because he dealt with it, right? You know his stories. But for me to be able to well, I basically just kind of relegated myself to, well, I'm going to have this knee pain for the rest of my life. Can't do this or can't do that. I'm just going to have to deal with it. And I didn't want to have surgery because it wasn't anything that I felt I needed to have surgery on, right? It was more of just a level 10 annoyance out of a 10, right? But how many people have had that exact same experience as me and have just kind of said, all right, I'm done, because no one was there to show them, oh, hey, do the Patrick step, 2 sets of 25 every day, while you're in the shower, knock it out, boom, do some tib raises. Oh, wow, my knee is not hurting as much anymore. I mean, imagine how many people's lives would be benefited from just those 2 movements alone.
Billions. That's the answer.
Right,
Billions.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. It needs to be everywhere. And even now, when I go to the gym now, I am very encouraged to see that people who before have been doing, back buys, tries, I'm now seeing like, okay, someone's doing a Patrick step over there. Someone's walking backwards on the treadmill. Like, okay. This is good. This is good. All right. So tell me about your business model today. When did you meet Industrious and Stephen and Molly?
So yeah, in 23, June-ish, I was looking for something. The CrossFit thing, again, we'd rebranded. We weren't CrossFit. We weren't a CrossFit affiliate at this point. I kind of, honestly, I mean, again, and to echo your sentiment, great methodology. I think it's done wonders for the fitness world in the sense of getting people active. But I
Doing
just kind of
compound
started.
movements. Doing compound movements.
Right, right. But there's definitely holes in the programming, and we could talk about that ad nauseum to a degree with regards to the stuff that they do really well and the stuff that they don't. But that aside, I'd kind of just gotten a little disinfatuated with CrossFit and was just looking, because I'd seen a fair amount of injuries, and it wasn't due to a lack of us saying, hey, don't do that. It was, hey, don't do that, or do this instead. Oh, well, I'm going to do that anyway because they're meatheads, and the competitive nature brought it out of them, and then ruptured tendons and torn labrums and this and that. It's like, man. So I will fast forward real quick. In the year that we've been running the Industrious model, I've had no injuries reported at the gym. And, not that we've had major injuries, but we've had some tendon rupture, in the CrossFit space at our gym over the years. We've had some shoulder repairs and some hip replacements. Now, I don't think the hip replacements were directly as a result of what they were doing in CrossFit. It's probably pre-existing, but still, the nature of a lot of those movements, like you said, getting thrown into it and having the competitive drive thrown on top of that can lead to shenanigans. People just doing stuff writing checks their bodies can't cash.
Well, and it's the natural result of framing anything as a sport.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, people get injured when they do sports like that. When you're doing a sport, you're trying to win, and that can result in injuries. And no one bats an eye if you get injured playing hockey or football or soccer. Like, it's like, oh, it's a sport. And so if CrossFit's a sport, it's going to lead to injuries, period. That's what sports do.
Bingo. So that was one of the big detractors for me, is like, how can we keep people from themselves, but also still have it competitive and in a fun way that's driving progress, right? The minimum effective dose for people, because we were aging up. Our member base was getting older and we weren't recovering as quickly or adequately as we once did without help, if you will, right? So that led to me just looking for something else, like what can we do to change the trajectory of the business. And then COVID obviously will also put us back quite a bit. We never really came back from COVID from a group training perspective. So I was looking at two different models, the metabolic model and Industrious. And I heard about both of them through Stuart Brower on the WTF Gym Talk. So I looked into both, and the barbell was still part of Industrious's model. There's still a CrossFit style training program. So, and I knew that our member base they have an infatuation with the bar. If I took the bar away, it probably would have pushed a lot of our longtime members possibly out the door. And we didn't.
I agree. And I echo that sentiment.
Yeah. So I didn't go with metabolic and reached out to the Industrious team in June of 23 and just started the conversations. I think we franchised was it October? I think it was October, late October. We signed the paperwork, got the payment in, and then the ball started rolling. And then we had everything flipped, the gym completely flipped and outfitted come February 10 of 24.
How much did that cost? What do you feel? Whatever you feel comfortable.
I'll say as a healthy 6 figures.
Got it.
Yeah, to get everything in place. And I mean, the space looks phenomenal. The model that Steven and Molly have brought is great. It's very aesthetically pleasing, which I'm a fan of. It's very clean, again, which I'm a fan of. If you're into organization, it's a dream, right? I mean, it just looks organized. Everything has its place. It's not haphazard. And having the in-place model where everybody just kind of knows where to go. And it's just so efficient. It's very efficient.
So the Industrious model is based around this concept called the halo. Can you explain that in a little more detail?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the halo is a 13 by 13 square that houses your 4x4 squat structure. Your rack has a pull-up bar on it, a medicine ball target, set of rings. Then you have your rower, you have your assault runner, your C2 bike or your air assault bike, your choice, whichever one you want to outfit your gym with. And then your 300 plus pounds of plates and the plate caddy, all in that 13 by 13 square. So that's your area of operation. And it can house 2 bodies. So 2 people can fit in that space. Oh yeah, and you got a 3-in-1 box too, with 20, 24 and a 30-inch soft box. So all of that equipment is there for you. The only thing you need to get and bring to your halo is if it's a barbell or dumbbells or kettlebells or medicine ball. So those 4 items are the only thing that you'll ever have to trek back and forth to.
Oh, I see. Halo. Yeah. Like they're in the corner somewhere. You got to bring them and then put them back. I got you.
Right.
Okay.
Whereas, the old model is you found a spot on the ground, you set your rower up, or you had your line of rowers, and then everybody went to the rower, and then they go back to their barbell space to do their barbell stuff, and then they went to the pull-up bar to go to do the pull. So, there was a lot of time in terms of transitions that were wasted for people who are conscientious about that. Like, oh, my time's it's so much longer because I had to all the stuff that people say, right? All the excuses that people give. But here, it's super efficient from not only a member perspective, but from a coaching perspective, because you're not having to wait for everybody to go get all their gear. You can see everybody pretty clearly. You can eyeball a good movement versus a bad movement, one that needs to be addressed right then and there before somebody gets hurt. So it's just the layout and the overall just look is really amazing to me. And I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of the Industrious model.
Now, Stephen and Molly, were they CrossFit owners before developing Industrious?
Yep. It was Industrious CrossFit or CrossFit Industrious. I can't remember which one it is, but they opened in 2011, and then they went through, which you were living up there at the time during COVID, right? In
Yes, I
Seattle,
was.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
So you knew the story about how hardcore lockdowns were and what was going on up there. So, they had the taped off spaces that we did as well, but we didn't have all the equipment stayed. We still had people just bring all their gear to their taped off areas when we were doing it. They just kept all the gear in this taped off square. And then it just kind of built from there as far as, oh, we could put a rig here. We could put a rower here. We could put a runner here. We could put a bike here. Oh, we could put their plates here. So it just kind of grew into this model of, oh, we'll just have this in place model and we'll call it the Halo. And that's where it came from.
Yeah, I still need to meet up with them. They're in Linwood, correct?
They have the corporate owned, the stores that Steven and Molly own themselves is South Lake Union and Linwood. And then they've got Puyallup just opened up not too long ago. Brett is West Seattle. That's been open for a little while. They're doing really well. And then U District just opened up as well. And then, obviously, and what's great about for them is they've got the brand recognition. Whereas here in Texas, there's really no Industrious brand recognition yet. So there's some struggles that we've ran into there with regards to, branding and marketing and getting bodies in the door. But we're working through that stuff. And I'm sure we'll be rocking and rolling here in no time. But yeah, I will say that for us, we ran into a little obstacle of just not having that brand recognition and the growth that I was expecting didn't happen as fast as I would have preferred it to happen, obviously. So
Yeah, I mean, you got to give it to CrossFit. I mean, there's nothing like those early days and the frenzy around the CrossFit brand, man. It was because it was revolutionary. Like it really was that experience. And most people, if they played sports after college or high school, just never had an intense feeling.
Yep. They were hungry for it.
They're hungry for it, yeah, and it was quite intoxicating. Okay, so walk me through how your ATG private coaching or semi-private, I'm not sure how you structure it, how it integrates with the Industrious model.
Yeah, so I'd say for the most part, it's pretty separate. However, I think that the only crossover that I personally bring into it, and my other coach, Diego, who's also in the ATG world, is just we throw in facets or movements, I should say, into our warm-ups. So if we got a running day, we're hitting those calf raises, tib raises, and Patrick steps in the warm-up, right? If we've got some split squats, we'll show them the ATG split squat variation versus the standard split squat, right? For somebody who wants to get a little bit more length and a little bit more dynamic with it. So I'd say that's probably really the only kind of crossover that you would see from the outside. Because other than that, the ATG stuff I really reserve for people who are wanting that specific style of training who come to me through the ATG channel.
Let's go through your different marketing channels. So I found you through the ATG for Coaches portal. There's also a private Telegram group, and that's how we actually connected. But yeah, you're listed there on ATG for Coaches, so people can find you there. What are you currently doing to market your Industrious business and your ATG private business independently?
Yeah, so through Industrious, we have a marketing allocation that we require to spend every month. So we're in the process of redefining that, and we're still figuring that out on the Industrious side. As I mentioned a moment ago, I kind of hinted to, we're not growing as fast as I would like to grow. We're not at the numbers that I was anticipating we would be at this point. So I've started to, kind of really look hard into, all right, what's going on and why? And we're working through that right now. And I'll have more information for you hopefully here in the next month or two. But for now, I'd say we're still figuring that out. For ATG, really, I don't do a lot of active marketing in that regard other than the ATG coaches map. And it's not that the door's getting banged down for ATG coaching on a regular basis, but God always provides. And I got a new client last week and she found me off the map. So, and Ben's been doing a lot of X posts here. He's been spending a lot of time on X, and he's always signing off with that link at the bottom of his posts for coaches. And he's trying to drive that business for the ATG coaches, himself. So he's getting out in front, leading from the front on that pretty well. We're pretty thankful for that because he's helping a lot of new coaches get business.
Have you had conversations with Eric Williams?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And did you listen to his podcast with Ben? It must have been like 2 or 3 months ago at this point, talking about the ATG, I guess, franchise concept. I don't know if that's, apologies if it's not supposed to be called a franchise, but essentially like a brick and mortar concept that they're developing.
Yep.
Okay.
I didn't hear that particular podcast, Michael, but I am in talks. We have a channel, us coaches that were Ben, Eric, myself, and other coaches that have gyms now or that have desire to open an ATG gym. So that is definitely stuff that is spinning around. Patrick, one of my other buddies here, he actually coaches in Dallas. He and I have talked a couple of times about that concept. And that might be something that we still do. I don't know. But yeah, I think it would be pretty exciting to be able to do that. Again, I've got some things that I need to get ironed out in my own backyard before I start trying to play in somebody else's backyard in that regard. Because right now, the individual stuff is working fine. We've had some low level conversations about the group stuff for ATG and like in an ATG gym. And I think that could be great as well. But again, I haven't had the bandwidth mentally to put into that.
So you're the owner and CEO of your business empire. Talk to me about how you manage the maybe less sexy elements, but that are extremely crucial to running a business. So when I mean like HR, finance, those are two really big, HR, like personnel, like managing personnel, accounting, finance, cash flow projections. How are you currently solving those very important aspects of your business?
Chat GPT.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Honestly, my wife plays a integral role in those responsibilities. If I didn't have Kim to help me out in those areas, I'd be a mess. But, like the back office stuff, database management, billing, she takes the brunt of a lot of that stuff. And she has a real job. So she works, full time in her own job, in her own field, but she plays a big role there. And then as far as, HR, not really an issue. It's myself, my other coach, Diego, and then our other part-time coach, Colin. So there's not a lot of HR stuff that needs to be not, done in that regard. As far as accounting, we've gone through a few CPAs over the years. We're still looking for probably something that checks all the boxes. Kim's kind of flagged down one organization that I think we're probably going to go with here in the next month or two. We've tried to do it all ourselves. We find that it's easier to outsource it and, with a reputable company to do that, because then it's getting done and you're not getting behind, and then you're struggling and all anxious about deadlines, like tax time. I'd say for us, it's been better for us to have it outsourced than to deal with it ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. Your primary function, I think, should be being the key person of influence. So being out there as the face of your brand and also focusing on product or fulfillment, right? So how do we fulfill our offer as profitably as possible? And then all those other functions, like they need to be there, because if they're not there, then like hits the fan and everything falls apart. Like it's not what's actually delivering the value, right? So,
and that note, I still clean the gym myself, so I haven't outsourced that yet. Now I have outsourced that in the past, and it starts off great. The first 2 months they're on it, but it's every company we've had or individual that we've hired on to do it, it slowly starts to degrade. And then now you're playing, hey, what about this? Hey, why wasn't this done? And it's just like, I'll save the money. Do I like cleaning toilets? Hell no. But it's going to get done the way it needs to get done most times, right? So more than not. So that's where we are with that. So I am the janitor at this point.
hey, you're doing what you got to do, man. That's how you keep the quality high. So, Cory, tell me then, where do you envision your enterprise? Where do you want to take it in the next, let's say, 2 to 5 years?
Well, I'd say the first thing that jumps to mind is just get us back to some really healthy revenue numbers again, pre-COVID. We've had some really great experiences running this business. We've seen some high highs, but we've also seen some low lows. And I'd say we're not at our low, but we're not too far from that, just from a revenue perspective, business health. And that's why, I think the Industrious model was the right choice for us from an organization and aesthetic viewpoint alone. But that also goes to show you, just because you have it doesn't mean it's going to be successful. So for us, we need to get really good at getting our brand recognized and get it out there, right? So that we can take advantage of that. So for now, I want to focus on getting the bodies back in the gym, right? Getting our lead at a high level, and then get the acquisition back to where it was. Our retention's pretty solid. I'm not sweating retention. I think we do a great job of retaining our members, and we could do better, but I think we do a pretty solid job now. Where we're hurting is acquisition, lead gen and acquisition. So we're going to be really digging into that. And from that point on, I'd say in the next 90 days, I want to add another 5K revenue per month. And then by the end of in a year out, I'd like us to be over 30 again. So, and that would be a good number. I know it could be more, but I'd be happy with that because the bills are paid and things are getting back in the right direction as far as restoring our nest egg and all that good stuff.
What is your opinion of Alex Hormozi and his content?
I was leaning into some of his stuff a while back. I think he has great advice. I have nothing negative to say about Hormozy. I know he started the gym launch stuff a long time ago, and I think we did an iteration of that. I think he wasn't as involved in it by the time that we did it, the 6-week challenge stuff. But other than that, I've got a couple of his books, the sales books. I have not read those, but I do have them. And that's probably the extent of what I know of Alex Hormozy and what I've done in terms of, applying any of his methods. Really, I've not really dug too far into that.
I was curious if you had reached out to Cal Owen or if you'd interacted at all with Gym Launch and what your experiences had been. But it sounds like you're aware of them, but you haven't engaged with them.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it might be something to check. Maybe. I can't speak about it from personal experience. I have read his leads book and his offers book, and I think they're excellent. He has an audio version and a book version. Yeah, I think it's really good. But yeah, you've identified the things that really you need to focus on to really grow. Any final causes or charities that you'd like to highlight or draw attention to as we wrap up?
No, nothing really jumps out, Michael. No.
That's fine. That's totally
Sorry. I think I'm just kind of head down, and I've got a lot of outside noise going on, right? That's kind of pulling me or trying to pull me a lot of different directions. And I'm just trying to stay focused on the singular action of doing the small tasks that will lead to greater outcomes with regards to rebuilding our business. That's where my singular focus is right now, is because it's now or never for us.
Yeah. Well, the service that you're providing is changing so many people's lives, getting people's health and mindset straight is, like I mentioned earlier, it's one of the 3 crucial legs of the stool. And so I feel like I think capitalism has the unique ability to provide enormous good in the world that doesn't have to rely on charity. It is in itself the world-changing agent because it captures our intrinsic need to create, and that, I think, is the best way to change the world at scale, right? So instead of relying on donations or charity or largesse to actually just deliver a high-quality product that really changes people's lives at scale, that people pay for so that it can be self-sustaining and self-growing, is, I think, a better way to change the world than relying on generosity. Generosity is great, and we should all be generous, right? But my observation is that the services that change the largest number of people are self-growing. And so I think that's a good place to focus.
I could get with that.
Yeah. All right, Cory. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
You bet. Michael, thanks for having me, buddy.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Let's talk soon.
Sounds good.